Welcome to another job guide, this time featuring a very special dual caster. Unlike my other guides, this video will mostly focus on the first steps as Red Mage, or even before that, to serve as a compendium on your Red Mage journey. But first, a short introduction to Red Magic. The Red Mage uses short-ranged melee attacks when being powered up through its explosive casting devices. In that process, it is very flexible and brings tons of helpful utility tools to the fighting table, like raising, healing, or group power-ups. And I know you may already wonder why I am covering the Red Mage from level 1 when it actually starts at level 50. Just for a simple reason, you may be thrown into low level content by taking part in duty roulette leveling or by helping out a friend with some low level fates. Whatever reason may cause your level to sink down, you won't have access to your full arsenal of spells and traits, so let us cover them step by step. The first thing, and therefore a requirement to unlock the Red Mage, is that you purchase Stormblood or the complete edition, because Red Mage is a Stormblood job. Unlike Dark Knight, Machinist and Astrologian, you don't need to have access to Stormblood areas to get started. Only one of your fighter jobs needs to have reached level 50. That also includes casters, ranges, tanks and healers. All this secured, you can start your fancy adventure by accepting the quest Taking the Red in Ul'dah, Steppes of Thal. As Red Mages share their equipment with other casting jobs, you can easily take the gear you already purchased for your Summoner or Black Mage, except the weapon or job specific gear. Nonetheless, the quest will dress you up in a full set of Red Mage armor plus a weapon, so don't worry about it too much. So let us get started with leveling, and as this can easily take us to the point where a level is synced down, let us start from scratch. The Red Mage, like other jobs in its casting role department, will mostly focus on casting spells, but that directly brings us to the biggest difference. Each hard cast spell will trigger your dual cast ability that transforms your next spell into an instant one. That means your general rotation will always circle around a hard cast spell followed by an instant spell caused by your dual cast trait, where hard casting means standing still and waiting for its cast time to finish. And even when riposte may be your first attack, you will never be synced down to level 1, so the first real attack, or precisely spell, is Jolt, being a brilliant tool to proc our beloved dual cast that is also learned at level 1. And to make reasonable use of your dual cast other than just repeating Jolt in its base form again, we receive Ver Thunder at level 4 and Ver Arrow at level 10, both being powerful targets for dual casting. In the meantime, you will also learn Corp a Corp, an off-global cooldown ability that will pull your character towards your enemy, which most players refer to as Gap Closer, closing the gap between you and your foe. This is not only important for dragging you into the enemy for later melee rotations, but this also deals a small amount of damage, so use this when possible and you don't need it for certain gap closing situations. By the way, off-global cooldown abilities mean skills or spells that don't trigger the general global cooldown of normally 2.5 seconds, so you can mostly use or weave two of these so-called OGCDs in between weapon skills. And for not interrupting the flow of hard casting, always use these after your dual cast instance. Okay, but when do these melee attacks come into play? The moment you're having access to your spells, you will always have a subsequent access to your mana gauge that contains two different bars, the white and the black mana bar. These bars are filled by the appropriate spell element or both at the same time by neutral spells like Jolt, Scatter or Impact. And don't mistake mana and MP. MP is used for using spells and mana is the job specific resource bound to the Red Mage. So at level 10, you can forget your riposte and will always wait for it to turn into enchanted riposte when you accumulated 30 mana of each element. At level 15, you will receive the first AoE attack Scatter that is also a neutral spell, providing mana to both aspects. This should always be used under your dual cast effect because of having a large casting time. On the other hand, we get Ver Thunder 2 at level 18 and Ver Arrow 2 at level 22, both working as your AoE pendant to Jolt. Yes, in the AoE department spell elements are swapped and the neutral spell is our big dual cast spell and the elemental versions are the hard cast starters with a faster cast time. So if you're fighting 2 or more enemies, try to start your AoE damage with Ver Arrow 2 or Ver Thunder 2 and let your scatter follow with each dual cast proc. All these spells hit in a circle around your target, so choose enemies of the pack that are quite centered. On level 26 and 30, another mechanic is introduced to our hard cast kit, namely Ver Fire on 26 and Ver Stone on 30, the first providing black mana, the latter providing white. The specialty about these spells, they need to be procced by a 50% chance on each use of our big Ver Arrow or Ver Thunder, where only matching elements will proc the matching spell. So at level 26, we will always start with Jolt, followed by Ver Arrow or Ver Thunder, according to which mana is needed, and if you receive a proc of Ver Fire through using Ver Thunder, use Ver Fire afterwards to replace Jolt as dual cast generator with stronger potency and generating more mana. The same logic applies to Ver Stone on level 30 of course. A small tip here, avoid using Ver Arrow and Ver Thunder when you already got a proc of the partner spell. On level 35, our next melee attack, Zwergho, is waiting for us. That also is a follow-up attack to our riposte and should never be used without being enchanted, which means we need even more mana for this combo. 30 of each element for riposte and 25 of both for its follow-up. So our goal is 55 mana on each side before we are engaging our melee combo. Also note that these melee attacks cause a shorter recast timer than our hard cast and dual cast spells, so their potency, even when being lower than our spells, are considered to have a much better value. So at least at this point, always use your melee rotation when you got the fitting mana for it. On level 40 we will get the pendant to our Corp in the form of Displacement, being a back jump ability that can easily ruin your day when used too close to the edge of a platform or dangerous barriers in some fights. So use it with caution and also consider using it for a small DPS advantage, if you're not risking your health with it. This also is an OGCD ability to use inside of your recast timers, caused by any dual cast spell. The same applies for Flash on level 45, being a straight up DPS attack that you should keep on cooldown, as long as you're not having a strong buffing opportunity being close, especially those of other party members. And like it is for Displacement, Corp and all other OGCDs, as Red Mage you need to weave these spells or attacks in right after you cast a recast timer with one of your instant spells caused by your dual cast. So the general scheme will always look like that: hard cast spell with a short cast time, dual cast proc turning a spell with a long cast time into an instant, followed by one or two off global attacks like Flash, etc. Then finally on level 50 we're receiving the third melee attack, Redoublement, completing our melee combo. And of course forget about the normal version, we're looking at the enchanted one. That also costs 25 mana of each element, summing the whole combo to 80 white and 80 black mana. And as this is a true DPS advantage over using our dual cast alternation, we finally have a precise goal to aim for with our mana gauge. Above that, acceleration is being added to the skill pool. Remember Ver Fire and Ver Stone? Acceleration will guarantee those procs for the next 3 Ver Arrow and Ver Thunder uses. So this is a fine tool to guarantee yourself a fruitful and damage heavy beginning into the fight, or mana recovery during the fight. Try to always make use of these acceleration stacks while not overriding procs. If you do, the world will still keep spinning, but give it a try at least. So at 50, that actually is the level we're starting with, we can talk about a rotation, but I personally think you should consider everything until level 80 as a priority list of skills, and you should definitely stick to the basics. And those will look like the following: start off with acceleration before the fight starts and open up with Jolt. If you're blessed with a tank starting a countdown, you could also precast Ver Arrow or Ver Thunder at 5 seconds, but my guesses are on ninja pulls. Then use your dual cast proc for your big elemental buddies, throw in Flash, Corp or Displacement, and make use of your procs for Ver Fire and Ver Stone. That again will trigger dual cast that you use for the big ones again, proccing Stone and Fire. Try to get your mana up balanced and proceed onwards until you reach 80 or something above 80 on each side and smash in your melee rotation, Enchanted Riposte, Zwergho and Redoublement, and then repeat the procedure. Most fights in Duty Roulette will not take that long, and for our luck the Red Mage is scaled nicely, so that you're one of the strongest DPS jobs in content below level 80. AoE wise, things are ultimately straightforward. Use Ver Thunder or Ver Arrow 2 to proc your duel and use Scatter with it. Your mana should be balanced of course, and try to save it for melee fights or just smash in your melee combo into your most hated out of the pack. This will directly change at level 52 and establish your whole Red Mage AoE behavior. There, you gain access to a sweet mana spender that now aims towards AoE opportunities in the form of Moulinet. Like you do on all other melee skills, use the enchanted version only, hitting enemies in a cone area before you. Here, you don't need to save mana until a certain point. My rule of thumb for enchanted Moulinet is to get the highest count of enchanted Moulinets into the biggest amount of possible targets. Later on, especially with some cooldowns and your own buffs, this guideline becomes important. On 52, Cure is added to our arsenal, being the only self-healing spell in-game that can be used subsequently and without a cooldown. This is a tremendous tool for helping you out to survive dangerous fates or when losing faith in your healers and you know that a raid-wide damage is coming up next. Otherwise, try to let healers do their job primarily and avoid using Cure, being a DPS loss as you could use the cast time differently. 56 brings with another awesome OGCD attack in the form of Contre Sixt, being identical to Flash but with a nice AoE potential hitting multiple targets as well. Make use of this after your dual casts and try to keep it on cooldown. On level 58, we are facing our first cooldown buffing our party and ourselves in the form of Embolden, granting us a 10% magical boost and the same in physical nature to our party, decreasing its value by 20% each 4 seconds. Later on, this will be a very important tool to bolster the offensive of our group, but on duty roulette content below level 80, just smash it in the moment you're using your melee combo or right after starting into the fight. But don't forget to use it inside of your recast timer caused by a dual cast instant. When hitting the endgame level of Heavensward, where you will participate in many 8-man or 24-man raid encounters, your rotation gets rounded up by Manification. That will double your actual value of mana, which means this will help us significantly in getting built up our mana, especially for starting into the fight. So good values to use this would be at 40 on each side or a bit above that, but you shouldn't use it when hitting more than 60 on either side. Then you should wait for the next cycle of mana gain. Of course, this will stabilize our rotation on level 60 by granting a quicker access to our bursting melee combo. Nonetheless, the optimal rotation requires unusual conditions in the form of a tank using a countdown. Therefore, stick to the basics, like we learned on level 50, with the exception to use Manification on 40 mana on each side or some above 40 to kickstart into your melee combo. The choice for Embolden lies with you. Push it out early, just before using Flash and Contre Sixt for granting your party the best profit out of it, or use it right before your melee combo out of the fact that you can't throw in a clean opener anyways with ninja puller tanks. It really doesn't matter that much on these levels, except you're going to play Alexander Savage in a real world scenario, which doesn't work either because your downscaled red mage power is way beyond the natural Heavensward DPS. On the AoE section, things are getting much more interesting now as you don't need these strict values of mana for Enchanted Moulinet and you can easily push your mana to have a vast amount of them being smashed in your enemy's face. On the other hand, you could also recover Manification when already being saturated with mana. Here, you could use Enchanted Moulinet 2 or 3 times and use Manification when hitting the 40 mark again, giving access to optimal 7 Moulinets in succession, leading to a massive DPS output for a short period of time. And the idea behind everything you learned about your AoE rotation won't change. Even on 80, you will follow on these procedures, only the potency of some spells will differ a bit. This would directly lead us to the Stormblood levels, but first I highly recommend to check out my gear compendium video to receive a simple overview on what gear possibilities you can get on each level key point, which will always be the step from one expansion to the next. Nonetheless, the Red Mage changes experienced during Stormblood leveling can mostly be described as bigger's better, as some spells receive a stronger potency. On 62, Jolt turns into Jolt 2, increasing its potency while also pushing your Ver Arrow and Ver Thunder potency significantly through a passive trait. And level 66 transforms your former AoE dual cast spell Scatter into Impact, being much stronger. And wait, I told you that Manification would make us complete. Wrong. On level 64, we're receiving Ver Raise, that is our raising ability we should never use without dual casting or with the role ability Swift Cast. This will grant us the unofficial title the Res Mage, the man, the myth, the legend, offering the best raising utility in-game. So don't be selfish, don't waste time on damage if there is a friend falling to the ground or off the stage, get him back up, cast one short cast hard cast spell and get up another one. Sometimes people are dying a lot, so after raising 2 times in a row, you should definitely use Lucid Dreaming to get your MP back on track. Then finally on level 68 and 70, you will receive another set of elemental magic, Ver Flare and Ver Holy, that serve as finisher extension to your melee rotation, being usable right after throwing in the successful Enchanted Redoublement. The best thing, they replace your Ver Arrow and Ver Thunder on your hotbar, for the moment being active, and when using the spell where your mana gauge offers a lower capacity, you will have a guaranteed proc of Verse Stone or Verse Fire according to the matching element. These are amazing finishers visually and potency wise, so enjoy them as best as possible, extending your rotation on level 70 and being instant casts. The rotation itself doesn't change much from the one of Heavensward, just put either Ver Holy or Ver Flare to the mix according to the lower mana capacity and enjoy a very comfortable combat style already. Before heading into Shadowbringers, remember to gear up properly, and if the Red Mage is your first character to unlock its main scenario, enjoy it, it's great. However, skill-wise the Red Mage received mostly utility additions to its ability roster, starting with an improved displacement, dealing more damage and also receiving an alternative for it in the form of engagement, that shares its recast timer with displacement but without jumping backwards. On level 74, our Manification will get tuned by adding a 5% damage boost for 10 seconds after using it, while also decreasing its overall cooldown. On level 76, we receive a special tool that uses your mana to land a ranged hit with your rapier that works aside from your general rotation. Just look at it like a tool to help you if movement will hinder you from casting and if mana isn't enough for your bursting melee combo. Otherwise, don't use it as long as you're not forced to move. 78 brings with another enhancement to Contre 6 by reducing its cooldown a bit while also adding some potency to your elemental AoE spells Ver Thunder 2 and Ver Arrow 2. Then finally on level 80 we will receive another extension to our melee combo in the form of Scourge that is even stronger than our Ver Holy and Ver Flare while also being an instant follow-up spell to these. So nothing really special about it, just another nice addition to our bursting phase, making it feel more powerful than ever before. And here we are, our leveling and learning journey has ended, but we're standing on the steps to another adventure, the endgame. So, as most of my videos focus on endgame things, check them out, especially the Red Mage 5.1 rotation providing the recent and strongest overall rotation on level 80, or check out my 5-minute guide as well as my comprehensive level 80 Red Mage guide. I hope this compendium about red magic could help you in navigating yourself into its battle system, and if that is the case, about any support to this channel, I would be very happy. See you guys on Twitch, Patreon or in another video. And until then, keep loving Final Fantasy and take care.